Okay, agnostic, theist, I'm it all. Why? Because I'm an African.
Okay.
See, that's my staple statement. Long before it was ever broken up into denominations, there was one true sense, and that sense was that we are all God having a human experience, and that the way in which we treat each other is how we treat our God. And yet we can sit and watch people speak of this God. They can enslave a people. They can murder a people, manifest destiny in the name of God. They can kill each other in the name of their Creator. And not realize. See, in my family, we had a joke. They used to laugh at me. Because Daddy said, we're not even killing roaches in this house. Because they're all God's creations. Now, I don't want you crawling on my food. Yeah. Okay, I don't want you all up in my bed, but I am going to try to control where you are.
That's right.
But the idea of murder, anything, goes against the Creator's rules. The only thing I'm willing to get rid of is parasites.
Come on.
And I'm after that biggest parasite around. But read a book called Parasite Rex by Carl Zimmer. You'll understand what I'm talking about. Parasites have a right to no longer exist because parasites live off the living. They have no purpose except to live off the living. So therefore, I got to get rid of you. Because I'm not a willing host for the small or the big. The ones that fly or the ones that walk. I'm not a willing host. That's why I go back to Malcolm on that.
That's right.
You see, Malcolm said he doesn't even consider violence when it's self-defense. He calls that intelligence. That's our brother Malcolm, our shining black prince. That powerful entity that lived amongst us and was able to transform our thinking. As a young brother, observing him. Wow. I remember my mother used to get her hair done in Harlem, a place called Loresa's, on 120, between 120th and 121st and 7th Avenue. It is now called Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. And one day I came out. There was an African-American elder that owned like a luncheonette a couple doors down from the beauty parlor. And I went I used to have lunch. That was my highlight. And Mrs. Jefferson, who was my mother's beautician, had the front stall. And so I used to sit like where the flowers and the plants were, and I used to sit down and watch the goings-on of Harlem, right? Mm-hmm. And I always wondered why that man used to always go by like this. And then he'd come back later and go like this. And then he'd come back later and go like that. I said, what's the man doing like that? And then everybody was looking for him, and okay, write that down, right? I said, I'm playing numbers, for those of you who might not know. So, that was how I spent every other Saturday of my life. And one time I was coming out to luncheonette, and I saw a group down it was on 121st Street, and I went down, and I was 7 years old, by the way. I'm in the second grade, I'm 7 years old. And as I was always very small growing up, and so I worked my way to the group, and I moved between the adults, and I turn around, and I see this brother standing in front of me, and all I remember is just going like this. And then I couldn't get my eyes off him because I was trying to figure out, I had never seen a man look like this before. I'm trying to figure out where his forehead ended and his hair began. And I'm just staring at this man. And I'm feeling the spirit and the energy. Preach, brother, talk to us. And he come back with a conversation. And I'm just standing there staring at him because I'm still trying to figure out where his forehead ended and his hair began. Maybe about 10, 15 minutes. I'm 7 years old. I don't remember exactly. The group breaks up. The brother goes on his way. And I go back to the beauty parlor, and I'm sitting on the, where the plants are, on the sill. And in this beauty parlor, the brother that used to change the lights, that used to go and do things, because when sisters had their own establishment, always a brother was there for security, protection, doing the odds and end things. Okay, brother came and said, yo, you're not gonna believe 1914. I'm sorry, 1913. Oh, good. Where am I? I'm back where my father was born. 2013. By December 31st, 2013, each and every one of us should and must know every country of Africa. It is embarrassing for us to talk about being into Africa and don't know the countries.
Every country.
You got to know every country of Africa. I realized the Berlin Conference of 1885, I realized that. I realized the carving up of Africa, and I realized that these are not the real names that our ancestors had. I understand that. But in 2013, there are over 50-something countries. We ought to know them. Okay? And now with the splitting up of Sudan, and that's going to be even southern and northern.
Still cut.
Yeah. And you see, the thing is that I realize what happened, but that doesn't take away from the reality of us knowing the countries. So that when we get down, we ought to, and here's my recommendation, here's how I teach the countries. I teach the countries by regions. I don't teach the countries necessarily just by name or alphabetical. Because there's no, alphabetizing is really a linguistic, phonetic phenomenon, but it has nothing to do with your recollection from a space-time perspective. And so my recommendations is to look at the countries from a regional and start with the place of the origin of the human family. Start with the Great Lakes region. Start with Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. Start there. And then move north. Move north into, because that's the way the African, that's the way the human family. See, there's only one race on the planet. There's only one race. See, there's no such thing as interracial marriage. It doesn't exist. You can have an intraracial marriage, but you cannot have an interracial marriage. Because inter means there's more than one. Intra means within the one. You can have an intercultural marriage, but you cannot have an interracial marriage. There is only one race, and that race is the human race. Through science, through biological climatology, this race was born, was conceived, born, nurtured, sustained, educated, brought to its highest form in the Great Lakes region because of biological climatology, because of its closeness to the sun and how the sun beat on that human organism. Has to do with science, had nothing to do with superiority or inferiority. Dr. King was right, and I believe in him sincerely. It is the content of your character. It's your admonitions to ma'at that make you who you are. Ma'at being balance, justice, righteousness, reciprocity. It's not the color of your skin. It's not how well melanated you are that makes you superior. Because I know too many well melanated people that are acting very inappropriately. Okay. I'm not into names. I'm just into concepts. You know it too. So that's my recommendation. Know the countries of Africa. Go north. And then begin to look at the countries that would go just north of Kenya, which would be Sudan and Kemet. Okay, that's where the technology came into effect. So you're moving up and you're and then go into North Africa. Go into from Egypt, go into Libya. Okay, Tunisia. Okay, and then go around the north, Mauritania, southern Sahara, then come down. And as you come down, you go into West Africa, Senegal or Senegambia, Burkina Faso, Mali, Nigeria, okay? And then from there go south into Namibia, Azania or Southern Africa. Come up and around into Mozambique, Angola, okay? And then move into Central Africa. And what you have is an elliptical galaxy. So that whenever you have to recall information, you can recall it through an elliptical galaxy as to where that country is, and that's how you can retrieve information, because I'm very much into how the brain functions. I'm very much into how the brain functions. And that's one of the things that's hurting us in education. Because every teacher that comes through my staff development must have a course on brain anatomy. There's no way that you're going, there's no way you, for a teacher not to know brain anatomy is equivalent to a brain surgeon not knowing brain anatomy. A brain surgeon cannot operate on a brain that he doesn't know where the parts are. An educator cannot teach a brain where they don't know where the learning centers are.
Wow.
You have to know Wernicke's position. You have to know Broca's place. You need to know the limbic system, the neocortex. You need to understand and know these things. And this is what I teach children in the 4th and 5th grade. So when I'm talking about an African-centered curriculum, I'm talking about science. I'm talking about academic excellence. History, yes, has its place most definitely. But if we don't get to the science of this, you know, if we don't become, they're going to tell us that we're illiterate. We taught them how to read. We invented writing.
Hello.
And now we're illiterate? We're not illiterate. We just don't understand the nonsense that you don't understand. You don't even understand. Because all language comes out of sounds. You see, that's what creates language. This is why you have folks say that somebody has dyslexia. Dyslexia doesn't exist. That's a social construct. Because nobody ever said that people have to be able to take reading and decode. See, reading is decoding. This is what we have to educate ourselves to. Reading is decoding. Reading is not reading. Like I've taught reading. I'm a reading teacher. Every teacher is a reading teacher, by the way. It makes no difference. Because basically what you're doing is decoding. Math teachers are readers because you have to decode formulas. The same mental aspect it takes to decode a letter, you have to decode a number. So I have a child. Okay, they say, okay, brother, Kwame can't read. I say, okay, Kwame, check this out. I just think called big books. Okay? And you have small books, and then there's a little script underneath. I say, okay, Kwame, what does that say? Kwame. I say, okay, so I cover the words. I say, okay, Kwame, what do you see? He says, I see a boy that's chasing a dog that's chasing a ball. I said, what color is the ball? It's red. What? And then I put it down. What does the caption say? The boy is chasing. I'm going to explain to you what happened when the drummers invited us up to come up and dance. Because you know, each and every one of you know that the moment that brother was drumming and you saw them sisters smiling and dancing, you know, each and every one of you, there was something in you wanted to get up and just do your thing. But something made you stick to your seat like someone had put crazy glue on it. Something made that happen. And I'm going to tell you what it was. My mother was a secretary. And one of the jobs of the secretary was to be a switchboard operator. Okay, I'm going back there. That's how far back I'm going. Okay, long before cell phone. Oh, somebody said long. Switchboard operator stood before this board with a lot of holes in it. Looked like beehives. And they had all these little things that had little prongs, and if a call came in, you would call and you put it in there. Okay? And that would connect the call. There were some times that a mistake may have been made and you put it in the wrong one and the extension meant to be over here. So you said, oh, I'm sorry. She would take it out and put it where it belonged. Okay? Now, in your brain, you have neurons. Neurons are made up of a soma, which is the cell body, and axon and dendrite. And everything that we're doing right now, you are sending messages from axon to dendrite. Axons are like long little tubes, and dendrites are like branches that are attached to the neuron, the cell. And messages, right now, that's what's going on in your head. Right now, there are messages being sent from axon to dendrite, all of it. For those of you who are familiar with what I'm talking about, for those of you who know switchboard operators, for those of you who understand what I'm saying, these messages are being transferred much quicker than those that are not familiar with this information. Because your brain has created what's called neural pathways. And it's making attachments to everything that you've experienced from the moments in the womb until this very moment now. Okay? In between your axon and your dendrite, you have an area that's called a synapse. S-Y-N-A-P-S-E. They say a synapse is an empty space. It is not an empty space. It's filled with neurotransmitters, such as neuroendocrine and other types of neurotransmitters that act as escorts across the neuron. Most of the misinformation we have is because the message that left the axon got to the dendrite wrong. It's like when we used to play Postmaster and I'd whisper something in my brother's ear, and by the time it got to the last person, it's the, I didn't even say that. That has nothing to do with what I said. Well, that's what happens in the human brain. As messages are being sent, somewhere along the line there's a breakdown in what was sent. And so therefore, by the time you react, you're reacting wrong because the message that and the person said, why, I didn't even say that, man. Why are you getting in my face like that? He said, because you said, no, I didn't say that. That's what happens. Okay. What's even more important is that what transmits and makes those happen is areas known as ligands. L-I-G-A-N-D-S. And every neuron has hundreds of thousands of ligands that act as escorts that bring information across from neuron to neuron, neuron to neuron. Okay. When we were home in Africa, in our communities hundreds of years ago, the cultural settings and the things that we were taught created within us values, interests, and principles, what Dr. Leonard Jeffries calls the VIPs. Values, interests, and principles. The laws of Ma'at, the laws of value, were deep within us. It was deeply ingrained in us what we valued. We valued nature. We valued interpersonal relationships. We valued the code of conduct. We valued these things. Then comes Urugu. Comes the European. Now, nowhere in my history that I've studied have I ever seen peoples of Eurasian descent having the power to come in and defeat us. Everywhere I've ever studied us, from Kemet to the Moors to the plantation to today, the reason why they are able to do to us what they do is because we, for some reason, fight amongst ourselves. And they take advantage of that internal fighting. And that's why I throw people off when I say I love our people unconditionally. Because they don't want that. They want me to have a gripe with somebody. Okay? See that man that ran for president on the Republican side? What is his name again? No, I'm talking about the brother. Okay.
Herman Cain.
Okay. You know I find value in him? His economic plan. For any black man to rise as a CEO, you've got some economic knowledge I need to learn. He and I could sit down and talk economics. We would stay away from every other subject that exists. But we could talk economics because he has something I want to know. That upsets people out there. Because they want me to badmouth him and he badmouth me. It takes a lot of power to think on the level that I'm talking. This is why I say don't believe me. Just let me make you think for a while. Let me make you think for a while. The other great value that Herman Cain has that I think is so phenomenal, we need a living example of what we must never become. I need to say to my son, don't ever be that. If you don't have an example, you don't know what not to be. That's why you'll never get rid of bad. Okay? And to our ancestors, no such thing as bad. There was good, and what existed when it wasn't good. Because everything has a place on the planet. Because at what point does good become bad and bad becomes good? There's a very thin line between that concept. When you start to think about these concepts and you think about these ideas. When Yurugu came amongst us, they did, well, let me put it to you, let me backstep. In Africa, when the connections were being made with our values, our interests, and our principles, there were connections being made through the neural pathways that concretized. It's called association. You were associating your neurons. You were making them one. You were creating a pathway. It's called association. When those that did us harm or attempted to do us harm took us, and when they brought us to an area where they superimposed their values, their interests, and their principles on us and made us honor those, they, like my mother, would take it out and put it somewhere else. That's what they did to our brains.
Yeah.
They took out our proper connection and they put it into their connection. And so now we have their values that stopped us from getting up to shake a tail feather with the brother. You see, because back in the community, from the moment that brother was in the hallway, everybody would have been up dancing. Okay, we'd have been looking for the brother. Where's the brother? You know, where's the brother with the drums? We'd have been looking for him. You see, that's our nature. The brother would never have had to explain to us that this is for y'all. Because y'all would have been up here doing it. You see what I'm saying? No judgment. I make no judgment because we all are by matter of degree at this place. By matter of degree. I'm there by matter of degree. But there's one thing that I think is my fortune is that I guess I was being prepared. But I've never really cared what people think about me. Because you see, it's not what people call you that matters. It's what you answer to. You see, you can call me whatever you want to. Because it really doesn't make, but see, we get caught up in this because we get caught up in their emotion. And when you get caught up in other people's emotion, they control you because they are emotional people. When you get science on them, that's why they don't invite me places. Because my response to them normally is very scientific. Very seldom emotional. Now, I'm not going to say that inside of me I just... but I never let them see me sweat. Because I'm a human being, I have those feelings. And they do get on my nerves. No, I'm telling you the truth, they do get on my nerves. I'm not going to let you think that slide off my back. It don't slide off my back. Because I'm a human being. And I have fears too. I have fear. See, when people tell me they're fearless, I ain't going nowhere near you. Because you're the one that's going to jump off the precipice. Say, come with me, okay? I'm fearless. No. I have my fears. I do have my fears. I have a right to have fears because I'm a human being. But I have no right not to have courage. You see, and it is at that point that when I know that I have fear, it's like a number line that has the 0 and the negative numbers going this way and the positive numbers going that way, and fear is in the negative numbers and courage is in the positive numbers. If I'm at a -3 fear, I try to apply courage to get the -2, a little bit more courage to -1, a little bit more courage to the 0 mark. And then when I apply the courage, it gets me past 0. That's when I'm acting courageous. But until then, I'm fearful. And much of what I am going to do is going to be stemmed out of that fear. Malcolm taught us this, and I teach us this. The price of freedom is death. And when I step out here and I do the work that I do, I'm taking a lot into consideration when I step out here. And I've had situations, I don't talk about them, I definitely don't talk to them with my family. But I've had situations before to let me know how dangerous transmitting knowledge to my people really is. And they guarantee me that I am doing the right thing. I love them, because they just keep reinforcing the fact that I'm doing the right thing. When they came amongst us, and they began to rip those ligands that had made the associations when we were in Africa. We celebrated our values, and we celebrated our interests, and we understood and lived by our principles. And I use that as an example with the drumming because it's a non-offensive way of showing you that they disassociated us from the very essence of who we are. That drum is our heartbeat. That drum is what runs the cosmic ecstasy. It is the Schumann's resonance. It is the 7.8 hertz. It's what keeps us in line with the cosmos.
Yep.
Map of Africa. Okay. I think I must have done something, right?
No, whenever it seems.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, it's searching. Thank you. Okay, what I'd like to do is look at a study guide I developed. How to study hidden colors. Sister Bobby, everyone has to study guide.
Yeah, they should everyone pick it up at the front desk. Okay, I'll get it.
Okay, let me tell you. When Hidden Colors 1 premiered in New York, it premiered in April. And Tariq Nasheed, being the wise brother that he is, Mac Daddy and all, he put it on World Star Hip Hop. And he exposed it to people who may never have ever been exposed to this concept before. So when I went to the premiere in New York, it showed twice in New York. I went to the premiere representing the movie. And after the first showing, I stepped outside. I thanked everybody for coming, and I was just there just to be part of that environment. And the brothers and sisters, young brothers, just coming out and saying, yo, man, I didn't know it was going to be like that. Hidden Colors, man, I thought Nicki Minaj. I look for Drake, you know, Lil Wayne. What's up here? They said, but you opened me up. I never knew this before. So now where do we go from here? And I realized something very interesting that day, and that was, although I knew it, it just reaffirmed something in me. And that is that, for those of us who knew this information, that had a good sense of this information, it was reaffirming. I believe Tariq and his editors and his video people did a fantastic job in presenting the information, the music. Wonderful piece, very professional. It brought us to another perspective as it relates to culture, with dignity and integrity. But it didn't teach anything new that you didn't already know. It was just a package that was different.
That's right.
But for some of our people,
It's confirmation.
it was confirmation. For those that never knew it, it was shocking. They came out like, I saw them, they were like dazed. Africans in America. Yo, wait. You mean to say that's what Dougie Fresh mean when he say yo Mo? He talking about the Moors?
Oh, okay.
Wait. I ain't never heard Africans in Asia. You see that Japanese brother? You see Buddha? He said, I thought that was a black man, Buddha. That sound like a brother. It was shocking. But it was overwhelming. And I felt responsible for that. I shut down for 2 weeks. Didn't go out my house. And I dedicated myself to gathering all of the material in outline form that I had created over time, so that I would not leave my house and ever be approached by a brother or a sister and ask, where do we go from here, and just list books. I said, I ain't playing. That study guide that you have in your hands, that's what I produced. And not only did I produce it, but I presented to the community for whatever it may mean. There's no price on it. DVDs, got a price. T-shirt, oil, got a price. Study guide, no price. Because that to me is the very essence of my soul, my purpose in life. I give it to my people. There are things that are priceless. There is no price on that study guide. The first part of that study guide deals with college courses that I've taught. I teach college. Every one of those beginnings, whether it's the Introduction to Africa, whether it's the origins of human beings in Africa, whether it is Africans in Asia, Africans in the Americas, Kush and Kemet, I've taught those in college. And that's my core syllabus that I've tailored to be a community presentation as opposed to a college course outline. The second part is my life's work. It's called 40 Seasons. To complete 40 seasons, 40 years. Because I'm not playing. We have work to do. You know, like this is an all-day thing. When I was speaking to Sister Bobby, I told her, I ain't coming in for no concert. This ain't no 2-hour thing and then we gone. This is an all-day experience for us. I don't do concerts. I don't do those 2-hour things. When I give you my price for the day, I mean all day. And for us as serious scholars, that's how we got to be thinking. I'm not playing. And I want the community to know that I'm not playing. So even before this started, we were talking. Because I'm serious. I want to talk to you. I want to get a sense of where we are. I want to get a sense of where you are. I want to be able to return back to New York and tell my peeps what's going on in Sacramento. I am very serious about this. It took us a while to get in this position. It's going to take us a while to get out. But Dr. Clark taught me that what we have to do is lay out a roadmap so that while we may start on the journey, we may not get to our destination, but if you have the proper roadmap, the people behind you will. And so that 40 seasons is how I have developed a 40-year plan. I'm a pyramid thinking brother. You see, some people say, yeah, see, pyramids are built over generations. In fact, when you look at Imhotep, Imhotep laid the mathematics for the perfect pyramid. He just didn't do the step pyramid, but he knew he wouldn't live long enough. Okay, you see those mastabas? Those steps on top, you see, on top, he did it 6 times. Well, the run to rise ratio that he has on each one of those, the run A, rise B, run A, rise B, run A, rise B. Even though every one of them is smaller than the one before, they are directly in proportion to that, and that's called the run to rise ratio in mathematics. Not only that, but I've taught the mathematical formula that built that pyramid. It's called finding the slope. Y equals mx plus b. That's finding the slope, side C. But if you square each side, the formula that built the step pyramid is what the mathematics that was laid down to build the perfect pyramid was, which was what? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's why you can put different numbers in, but they all come out proportionately to equal the same.
Yes, sir.
900 years later, a man by the name of Pythagoras come around. He learns this formula, and now what do we call it? Karnak. The temple at Karnak in central Kemet is built according to the concept of 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. What is it called? Fibonacci's
Sequence.
Fibonacci's
Numbers.
series, numbers. Fibonacci years later gonna come up with this, but that's what built Karnak.
Can you say that again? What built Karnak?
Karnak was a Fibonacci, 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 Italian mathematician.
Sequence.
Say again?
Sequence.
Sequencing, yes. Being taught this. And you go by, you add the preceding number. So you have 0, comma 1. 0 plus 1, comma, equals 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 1 equals 3. 3 plus 2 equals 5. That's how the temple was laid out. It was built expanding forever outward in those number series. That's what built Karnak. Karnak, you can fit every cathedral in the world and still have room for more in Karnak. That's how big it is. The twin temple, that's called the Ipet Isut, the holiest of place. You have the Ipet, which we today call the Grand Lodge of Luxor. That's built in the perfect proportions of the human being. There's a book called Temple and Man by Schwaller de Lubitz.
Oh yeah, I know.
I teach a whole class on that. You got to know your history.
Yes, sir.
So here's how I look at it, studying hidden colors. You got to break it up by chapters, because all the chapters psychologically don't fit. That's what a curriculum developer does. Somebody writes a book, but that doesn't mean that that book follows a sequence of the way the brain neurons work. That's the way their brain neurons are working, but that doesn't mean that's how you would teach it. And so I'm very much into curriculum development and writing and fleshing it out so we can teach it in the classroom. That's what I'm talking about. Because you see, this is the first time in Sacramento. I don't want to make it the last.
It's my opinion.
Oh, right.
We have work to do. And I want to, see, the next time I come, I want to start to implement the curriculum. I want us to understand how we can reach our children and teach this to ourselves and to our children. I want to lay it out, whether it's dealing with mathematics or whether it is dealing with any of these concepts. You know, this is not hard, brothers and sisters. It takes work. But in work there is excitement. See, we should have a work ethic.
Yes, sir.
See, we want to get paid, but we don't want to work. We want A's, but we don't want to study.
We want to go to heaven.
Process of learning. But here's how I would do it. Each one of these is about 12, maybe 15 minutes in length. I would show that chapter, and then I'd stop. And I do what's called a word splash. I do it with children. A word splash is when children just write down words that come to mind. And you have a circle in the middle. You have a central theme in the middle, and then you start to draw arrows from that, and you start to jot down people's words. And then the next step is you say to people, okay, when that word came up, what were you thinking about? Let's give me more. So you start from the word, because the mind thinks in visuals, and they attach words to visuals, and then they attach concepts and explanation of the word that describes the visual. So you start with the word splash, and then you say, give me more. So if somebody says Africa, you write Africa, and then you say, give me more. When you said Africa, what do you mean? And then they tell you, well, I was talking about the geographic location. I was talking about things that happen in Africa that we don't know about. I say, okay. And then I go around the room and I ask other people, anybody have anything else to add to what they said? They say, well, I was thinking about the fact that it's the richest nation on earth. And they would go, because what am I doing now? I'm inducing. I'm drawing them out. I'm drawing their knowledge out. And this is what they're doing in the classroom. And I would do it, maybe every section here would last maybe a half hour. Maybe if it's 12 minutes in length, and then the word splash, and then to give me more part of it may last 20 minutes or so, or whatever. So I'm talking about a long, protracted study session. Because if that's true, you may only be able to get through maybe 2 or 3 at a time. So then the next session, you might do another 2 or 3, which would be the origins of life in Africa. And you go to Hidden Colors 1, chapter 2, And then you go to Hidden Colors 2, Chapter 3, the Global African Presence. Now, for those of you who are videographers and who have the potential to do this, let me recommend that you might want to take Hidden Colors 1 and 2 and put it in this order.
Yes, sir.
Edit it into this order. You see, and then have your sessions along that. So your first segment might be the 4 that I just gave you. The second segment might be, so now what you're doing is that you're taking Hidden Colors 1 and 2 and you're shuffling it like you do cards, where they apply. This is how the human mind works, going back to the brain. Okay, now, I could go through this, but it would take time. Don't want to spend the time doing that. However, email me. I have my cards here. Email me, and I will send this back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just in the information box, just put Sacramento, Hidden Colors Guide, and I'll send it back to you. Okay, so that'll save you a lot of time from me having to go through this, because there's so much I want to talk to you about today. And I really don't want to get too deep into this. But I also want to return back, because when Brother, I didn't realize that Brother was going to drop this, but that piece on the drumming was very important to me, because it demonstrated so much. You have children in the classroom, and they're learning. You have basically 3 parts to your brain. You have a brain stem, you have the limbic system, and you have the neocortex. Every one of those parts of the brain have a specific function to do. The brain stem is called your reptilian brain. That's the early brain. That's the fight or flight brain. That's the one that has been born to protect the organism. Its job is to protect. Okay, something go down, yeah, I'm either going to run or we're going to fight. Okay. Born up out of the brain stem is going to come the limbic system. The limbic system is responsible for your emotional growth. Out of the limbic system, out of the brain stem, out of the limbic system is going to be born the neocortex. That is where you think. That's that big part of the brain. Okay. Now, through the growth, if we want to call it the evolution of the human entity as we know us, different things happen to the brain. And in the limbic system, what happened was, our early peoples, you have 6 forms of the human family: Australopithecus robustus, Australopithecus gracile, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens sapiens. Those are 6 forms of human being. What is going to happen in the brain is that the brain, have you ever been thinking so hard that you literally have a headache?
Yes.
Well, actually, your brain acts like a muscle. So really, when you're thinking, your brain is throbbing, okay? And what's happening is that your brain, in its throbbing, is like a muscle that's growing. But at the same time, what's happening is turning inward, and it's creating the nooks and the crannies of the brain. Okay? But at the same time, it's beginning to push out. It's push out. And in the prefrontal part of your brain, what was at one time in the early human family a slanted forehead is now going to push that slanted forehead out to become what we now call a forehead. Okay? When that happens, in your brain, your limbic system, your pineal gland is going to drop into your limbic system. And it's going to rest in an area that we call the ventricular system, the 3rd ventricle in particular. See, this is why we have to have brain anatomy classes. We have to understand this. Fundamentally, when you understand what I'm explaining to you, you can call into being whatever you want. And that's what our ancestors were searching for. They were searching for the ability to become one with nature at one's will. That's what made them so great, is that, you see, evolution is when we moved out and our body began to evolve. But once your lungs were the right size, your brain was the right size, your arms were the right size, your heart was the right size, everything was perfect in the human body, you no longer evolved, you began to involve. And that involution was the search for the God within. Because that's our purpose. Don't every holy book say that God created creation but could not know him herself, so therefore created creations in order to reflect back on them, to know that they were God? Well, that's who we are. Our job is to know that we are God. So after the body got right, we have to start to go inward, and we start to involve because of the function of the brain. So when the ventricular system sat down, you have 4 ventricles. You have 2 lateral ventricles, and you have the 2 lateral ventricles are joined, because I have it all on my computer, but time would take up too much time for me to go from place to place. So if you just follow my words, and when I do get a chance to really get deep inside, we'll take this step by step, and you'll be able to see it for what it really is. Because I've got numbers of PowerPoint pictures of the brain, the functioning of the brain, and a number of different things. Maybe this afternoon, if I could get back into it when I see how my time is going, I'll be able to do it. But I don't want to overwhelm us by attempting to do this. But when that happened, it allowed the ventricular system, which are like little balloons, to open up. When this came out, it sat the ventricular system down, and it allowed the ventricles to open up. Inside of your ventricles, you have a place, you have bundles of tissues that are known as the choroid plexus. choroidplexus. These little bundles is what creates cerebrospinal fluid. And that's what bathes your central nervous system from head top to shoe stop, throughout your entire nervous system. Okay? Your cerebrospinal fluid has 13 times the amount of melanin than your blood system. Deeply melanated, crystallized liquids. The very nature of what the cosmic universe is made up of is your cerebrospinal fluid. And it bathes your 12 pigmented sections in your brainstem, which includes the locus coeruleus and the substantia nigra. We got the black substance in us, but nobody ever says it's black. Substantia nigra, locus coeruleus. Coeruleus means black in Sanskrit. Locus means dot or point, black dot. So we have it in us, but no one's putting it together for us to be able to understand and really key into what this is. When the ventricular system was allowed to come down and stop and open up, it began to spread this cerebrospinal fluid throughout the body, which allowed the brain to function, allowed the brain to begin to go to its higher levels of consciousness. And because of where it was located, it literally put into motion a conscious movement of your chakra systems, which is your spiritual wheels of melanin. You know the song by Friends of Distinction, Going in Circles? It's more than what you think. Go back and listen to that song. And so the brain functions in a certain way that when the brain opened up, it was able to take in information on levels, and that's what brought us. Now, the pyramid builders and the Africans that were in the classical African period, the early dynasties, was called the Old Dynasty. They had risen to a level of consciousness that Dr. Richard King, brilliant doctor, psychiatrist, melanist from Los Angeles, he calls this new group of human beings Homo perfectus. We were on our 7th level of knowledge and wisdom before the Urugu came amongst us. And what they did is they started, we weren't evolving, we weren't involving, we started to devolve. And now our job is to take this information and begin to look at how we can begin to develop. You see all of these different lesson plans that I have here. Okay? Just going to end with this because I know that we have to move to it. There's evidence of an African woman in San Diego that dates back 17,000 years. There's evidence of Africans in Peru, in Tierra del Fuego, the southernmost tip of America. You want to know what they look like? I'm going to show you what the original people of America look like. That's what the original indigenous people look like. And that's what made the Algonquin, the Inuit, and the Asian. That's why they were called the red man. That was their blood. The first two migrations, first three migrations to this part of the world, pure African people. Thousands of years ago. So I have blood from Cherokee, Choctaw, Haudenosaunee or Iroquois, Onondaga, Pequot. I have all that blood through my vein. But you know, I got a problem with them. I got a problem with how they treated our people in Cherokee.
Yes, sir.
I have a problem with them.
Yes, sir.
And until you get with the Great Spirit, I ain't getting with you. And I don't know if they care about what I'm saying. I don't know if they like what I'm saying. But when you deny the nature of who you are, you're as bad as a Yoruba, as far as I'm concerned. And so Cherokee better check themselves before they wreck themselves. Because they're not in line with the Great Spirit.
Yes, sir.
The Choctaw, Seminole were black. I'm in California, the Khalifa were black. Very curly hair, very wide nose, very thick lip, beautiful, handsome people that were then overtaken by a lighter complexion, yellowish, beigeish complexion people. And do you know how you know that these people were Africans? Is because, see, we get caught up in complexion. Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois said that was going to be the problem of the 20th century, was complexion. But that's not how you know someone's an African. It's by your prognostic jaw. That's how you know someone's black. They have a machine called a craniometric machine that they put a skull in. And what they'll do is that they, in putting this skull into this machine, they can measure the angle of the face and the jaw. And if your jaw is somewhere between 61 degrees and basically 82 degrees, you have what's called a prognostic jaw. It juts out. In other words, the bridge of your nose and your jaw are parallel to each other. If you are somewhere between 83 and 90, you're called orthonastic. And that makes it that your jaw starts to jut in, okay? And that is what Eurasians' faces look like for the most part. It's almost like it's a pyramid. It comes down and then your face goes in. If you're 91 degrees beyond in the craniometric machine, you are called a hypergnathic jaw. So then when we're judging who we are as a people, we're too caught up on complexion. We need to start looking at the jaw to understand who is African, because a prognostic jaw comes out of heat. An orthognathic jaw comes out of cold. So that as we were depigmenting ourselves, our morphology, our facial structure changed, and our physiology changed too. Phenotype changed. And that's how we have to start to judge each other. And we have to begin. This is what the original. This individual has more in common with the Khoisan of Southern Africa than they do with any Cherokee, any Native American that's in America today. That is the original American. Short statured, well melanated, very curly hair. And by the way, she is the sister. That's a reconstructed face of what she looked like. And they know it.
Yeah, they know.
They know. We don't know. But guess what? Now we do. Listen, we're going to wrap this segment up. Vendors are out here. Let me end, brother, because I didn't answer your question. Meduneta, which means divine writing or sacred script, was not, is not, I don't believe, a spoken language. It's a pictographic language. Just like when you go to an international airport and you see a picture of a man, or you see a picture of a woman, you know that a man goes in that room, and that's a men's room. It doesn't say hombre, it doesn't say l'homme, it just has a picture. It's pictograph, but it speaks to you. It's symbolic. Medunetta is not a spoken language. It is a symbolic language that is to bring to you a collective amount of information almost immediately upon looking at that particular visual. There's a reason why our ancestors carved on the walls, because those pictographs that you're looking at literally can come out at you if you're a six-dimensional thinker. And they can tell you multiple things, not just what you're looking at. See, when you're linear, when you are a three-dimensional thinker, what you're looking at is what you get. However, when you're six-dimensional, not only does the picture come out at you, but you go into the picture. And therefore, it starts to revolve and involve an entire story that you could be looking at a picture on the wall, and that could be Biology 101 and 102 combined. One pictograph can be an entire encyclopedic piece of information. Okay. In my attempt to explain this concept, in my development of my totem, we each have a totem. We all belong to an African animal world. There is an animal that reflects us. And sometimes they're combined. If you look at the natures, you'll see there's the head of a human and the body of a ram. Head of a human, body of a snake. Head of a human, body of a dung beetle. You can see it juxtapose all sorts of things. When it's the body of the animal, it's telling you to live like the animal. When the head is the animal, it tells you to think like the animal. You see? And then whatever crown they have on top of their head is telling you who it is. So if you see a throne, you always know it's going to be Aset. Okay? If you see the ram horns, you always know that it's Amun. You know, if you see the disc with the sun in the middle, it's always head Heru. In the present world that we're living in today, I began to attempt to find a way to take what I perceive to be my totem, my animal world, and to put it into a Medunetta concept that I could explain. And I said there's no better way to do it than to put it on a t-shirt and a head kerchief. The panther, the body of a panther, but the tail of the panther is a cobra. Both feminine principles. Okay? Bastet, the panther. Bast, the black cat. That's why they always tell you black cat's bad luck. Because if you ever knew the good luck, they'd be in trouble. So they make you avoid by giving you some type of superstition on it. You see, number 13, bad number, greatest number in the world. But if you fear it, you ain't never going to want it. Okay? I look for things that are 13. Bastet is the body that takes us through this planet. Bastet is a form of, you know, they say cats have 9 lives. So on an earthly level, Bastet represents the ability to resurrect yourself. You can come up out of death and have another life. She is the sister to Heru in the story. Heru is the falcon, the Heruan factor that resurrects himself and continues the life of his father, Asar. But another story told in Kemet is that his sister Bastet is the black cat. And so Bastet is the feminine form of the male form of Heru. Wanwanko for drummers. Ashe. The snake. Gil Scott Heron has a whole piece when he does the Bottle Live, where he talks about the Wanwanko beat that runs through the world. It's in salsa music, it's in Haitian Creole music, it's in High Life of Ghana, it's even amongst us when we hear it. Basically, you're dealing with the sound. It runs through the whole. That is Wanwanko. That's the beat. That's the life. That's the vibration of the snake. The snake does something very special in her life, and that is that they are able to shed their skin. And so, in shedding their skin, it is equivalent to coming forward to a new life. And so, when they're ready to come forward to the new life after they've been in hibernation, they go to a very rough, rocky area and they begin to slither across it, and it opens up the dead skin. As it opens up the dead skin, they come forward with the new skin, leaving the old skin behind. So my conceptual framework, going back to the brain, going back to Ligands, going back to unifying, my name is Kaba Kamene. Ka, spirit, Ba is soul. Hiawatha is the indigenous brother that unified the 5 nations of the French called them the Iroquois, but they called themselves the Haudenosaunee. And he united them 500 years before Urugu ever came here. He said, because one day, he was known as the dreamer. He said, one day you're going to have a bigger foe to deal with. You better stop fighting amongst yourselves. Unite yourselves. So he took the Cayuga, the Mohawk, the Seneca, the Oneida, and the Onondaga, and united them as a people. And they would do war no more. He picked up a bush and had them put their hatchets in it. And he dropped the bush over the hatchets. You ever heard the term to bury the hatchet? Yeah. That's where that comes from. Okay. Hiawatha, the uniter. And then Ka Mene. Ka is spirit of Mene, the first pharaoh of the first dynasty that unifies Shma Tawi, the upper and lower land. When I was correcting my name from Booker T. Coleman Jr., the shamans and those that guided me through the process told me, do not pick a name that describes who you are. Choose a name that determines what your divine destiny is on the planet. Do not have a name that is a noun. Have a name that's a verb. And so the concept of uniting, of resurrecting us, goes back to chapter 43 of the book of the coming forth to day by night. So that's the chapter that I have chosen. Now I tell you this because now I got another homework assignment. Find your totem. What is your nature? What is your name? Who are you? And what's your chapter that describes what you're about? Concept of uniting us as a people. We got to unite. Look, you Puerto Rican, you black. You Dominican, stop crying, you're black. Dr. Clark taught us the only difference between a Jamaican, a Puerto Rican, a Haitian, a South Carolinian, a Californian is a boat stop. Cry your river, build your bridge, get over it. Hotel, Sister Bobby. Should I shut this down?
Greetings, brothers and sisters. Good to see so many smiling, healthy faces out here today. We're going to break for lunch right now. I just want to let you know a couple of things. Restrooms are out the door to the left. If you go out this back door, they're still going to be to the left. All right? We have vendors out here in the aisle that you will see. Right directly across this way is Temple Designs. These are handcrafted designs that she's made. She also offers sewing classes. Come to the door. She also offers, she's out there waiting, but you can't see her. Sewing classes, and she does also alterations. Everything is handmade by her. She draws her information from culture and different time periods. We have Culture Collection. A lot of you may know Betty Davis, our source for African and African American apparel, gifts, collectibles, jewelry, black soap, shea butter, and much, much more. Visit her on the web at www.culturecollection.com, and also her phone number is here. We have the Israel Family Farm directly across. They are located here in Sacramento. They are an urban farm. They offer scented body oils, raw shea butter, incense, and today blueberry lavender jam that was made in their urban kitchen homestead. And take my word for it, I know it's delicious. We also have a sister who is bringing us lunches, vegan and vegetarian sandwiches and some other food. She's not here yet. She had a little bit of problem, I guess, on the road. That might be them coming up right now. If you would like to wait and give them a few minutes, that's fine. Your lunch can be right here. You can eat in this room, or there's a room down the hall. The Sojourner Museum will be open to us. If not, you'll find some lunch, but it would be worth it to wait for her. Her prices are very reasonable. Her food is very healthy and very well prepared, especially for us today. So thank you.
So what time did we come back?
I met this brother at the at the brick house, doing poetry night at the brick house. And there's a lot of poets that post around town. All the poets is dynamite. But the way this brother does things, he stood out. He stood out. His poetry stood out. And there's no one I had to bring in here before y'all so you can meet this brother, and you're gonna be pleasantly surprised. With that, I'd like to introduce you to Brother Ackerman.
Before I even get started, you know, we should give us all up in hand just to know that we're all here alive to breathe, just to see each other. Who is acronyms? You know, I'm an activist of revolutionary life. I'm one of them black men, you know. I'm known as the illest poet. And for my name to be acronyms, if you look at the word illest, it tells you I love learning everything, speaking truth. That's what makes me the illest. So every word that I use, I found out, like, I was talking to Brother Booker T out there, it's like you're in my mind. It's like I look at words the same way. Like, reading is like decoding to me. Because I always knew that letters had meanings. Numbers had meanings. And when I learned each letter had a melody, and when you make a word, it becomes a rhythm. But for me, like a lot of people know, I'm always doing poetry. And they're like, what's acronyms about? And I always say, like, if you look at the first letter of the alphabet, it'll tell you, ask anyone about acronyms' ability, alphabetizing abbreviations arranged accordingly as an authentic speech artist. Applying acronyms, achieving acknowledgement, academically abusing any artificial arts affecting any area. Knowing real educated Africans, accepting anything added to aggression. Although I am an above average author, always using truth, helping others recognize anything, any place, any time. I am an artist. Acronym reveals truth, inspiring, man. Acronyms is real talent, inspiring truth thoroughly. That's artists. But most people want to know, how do I feel about life? See, if you look at me, I know I was created in the image of God. But if I look at you women, I know you were created in the image of goddess. You are a goddess, created in the image of earth. Why? Because you procreate and you give life. Your emotions change like the seasons, but your feelings flow like the wind. In search of that perfect verse, to go with that perfect beat, that creates that beautiful rhythm that only can be shared between man and rhythm. And once you understand that beat, I understood that beat, based everything around truth. Not knowing that everybody in here should know it always came from a woman, because all of us was born off a woman's heartbeat. Not knowing, I looked at the science of life and understanding what was all about life is vibration and sounds. So I asked myself, what came first? Was it the letters or was it the words? So when I looked at the word, it told me wisdom orchestrates real dedication. And with letters, it told me to liberate everyone's thought through everything righteous spiritually. But understand, when I understood the alphabet, it also told me, damn, I just told my brother this. Oh, okay.
Take your time, Floyd. Take your time, Floyd.
Okay.
When I looked at the alphabet, a letter pronounced helps everyone better express thoughts. So when I looked at the alphabet, I tried to do the alphabet, and it spoke to me. And I started going A, B, C, D. Africans build countries, dedicate everything for Jah, honored in God's knowledge. Loving many Nubians oppressed, praying quietly, releasing spiritual truth, using vibrant wisdom, Xeroxing your zone. Check it, CBA. Use a Mac, use a pimp, use a Mac. I told my homeboy G-Stack, I can't be no pimp, I can't be no Mac. I'm too righteous, I'm too conscious in my ways, I'm recognized as a griot. But your acronyms, use the words to your advantage. So when I looked at the word P-I-M-P, I seen I was a pimp. And it spoke to me and told me poetry's my passion. Wow. Let me say that again, poetry's my passion. But since I'm a babe boy, When you say Mac, boy, you better add a K, boy. And when I looked at the word Mac, it spoke to me and told me I was a master of composing knowledge. But you don't gotta believe me. My boy Yuckmouth be telling the whole world I smoke a lot, and I sure do smoke a lot, meaning speaking my own knowledgeable experience about living on truth. PSD, Lamont Jordan, my cousin E40 then told me I was the truth. Truth meaning the realest universal thoughts here. And here, helping everyone recognize excellence. But I'm not perfect, but I commit to excellence like the Raiders. But I ain't no hater. I'm recognized as a poet, but I'm more like a griot. But you guys want to know why I do this so big? Yes. You guys want to know why I do this so big? Because B-I-G stands for I believe in God. Believe in God. And if you like what I say, all you got to do is push rewind and listen to my wordplay. Thank you.
Wow.
I'll give you this last one and get back to the doctor.
No, you are the doctor.
Hey, you know that?
You're healing my soul, though.
Hey, we gotta record that. But that means a whole lot to me too, you know. This piece right here is called It's a Rap. And this is a piece I do, like all these kids, I'm getting off what I was saying earlier. A lot of these kids get into, oh, I want to rap, I can do this, I can do that. So my homies, even though I got family, they used to sit me on big time rappers, anybody. That's what he say, you know. So this is the piece that I use to get at rappers. It's called It's a Rap. I've been blessed to speak in verses, to speak in slangs, for all my peoples to recognize real hip-hop and poetry slang. Chopped in pieces, spellbound in skits, ready to blow minds for the first time before these words leave my lips. But I must become equipped. But I know the first sight you see me, you probably think I'm high. But if you look at the word high, just ask yourself how I got here. But really, I really be on that quest for love. But every time I dig for my roots, I always come up with a black dot. But the same energy that I be feeling is the same energy that Tupac and Biggie them felt, but not too many people looked at Biggie and Tupac's name the way acronyms looked at their name. See, when I looked at the word Tupac, it spoke to me and told me to uplift people about consciousness. See, that was Tupac. To unite people about change. See, that was still Tupac. But since Tupac didn't leave a seed to succeed, it took a brothers like acronyms to step up and do the right deed to unite parents and children. See, that's Tupac. But so many people be coming up to me to be saying, hey, acronyms, you're one of the greatest. I can compare you to Biggie. I said, don't compare me to Biggie because me and Biggie are one and the same. Just look at his name. I believe in God's grace in everything that I do. So I ask most rappers, why do you rap? You know what rap stands for, acronyms, respect and power. I said if it stands for respect and power, respect the poet, and recognize the prophet. And understand I am a poet, a prophet orchestrating every thought. But for me to incline these lines at the same time and call myself a prophet, it takes more than two, so that makes us all prophets. So when I looked at the word prophets, it lets us all know we're poor, righteous, oppressed people helping everyone think spiritually. But they be saying, hey, acronyms, how do you combine these lines at the same time? I said, look at the word mind. Mind tells you what I do. I mentally inject new diction. And looking at the word diction, I decipher individuals' conscious thoughts in order now. So they ask acronyms, why you don't rap? I don't rap because it really stands for rebel against parents or ruin all progress. So I chose hip-hop. Helping independent people help other people. I guess when money became into play, the dummies became into play and turned hip-hop into huge income potential hurting our people. I hope you see the sequel. Too many dummies would fall on the word money and never looked at the word money. Money would have told you. Monopolizing off Negro experiences yearly. Monopolizing off Negro experiences yearly. But too many people got that mean green to be chasing that almighty dollar, scared to turn it over and looking for in God we trust. But I guess it takes an OG scholar to lace you about the word $1. $1 would have told you what America did to us. Only negative energy destroyed our language, lives, and respect. That's why America's in debt. Look at the word debt. It tells you destroy every black tradition to keep black folks in check. But you choose you want to rap. You think you got flows. If you're looking through acronyms' eyes, you're looking like a snitch though. You so quick to tell me your nickname, your government name, Your hood though, and how much dro, and your partner pimping hoes, but to my surprise, I call you Snake Eyes. But really though, you're really a G.I. Joe. And what is a G.I. Joe? A government informant joining our enemies. A government informant joining our enemies. But I'm proud to be alive to see a black president in office, but the government still needs to change because the government is Pac-Man. And what is Pac-Man? Power and control, money and niggas. Power to control countries and money to tease niggas to fall the crooked line to crime. They say crime doesn't pay. But I guess it's us who keep our family locked away because the government found a way to reverse the system to where it's not for the people, it's for the government in their own way. So it took me back to the time where I think the times never really seemed to change. I still think we're still in them Jim Crow law days, them separate but equal. Because when I started walking around and seeing people, first crow then came up to me and then told me, color fuck me crackers rule our world. And the second crow then came up to me and said, color folks respect our world. See, this happened in the north, the east, the west, the south. Man, that's news. The north, the east, the west, the south, that's news. Nah, Negroes experience white supremacy every day. See, that's news. But they want to challenge acronyms the way I speak and educate the minds of the youth, thinking I'm trying to kill the system. No, I'm trying to help the system. Not even knowing the desegregation of schools. So I took a trip to Topeka, Kansas to find out the truth and found out it was all bullshit between Brown versus the Board of Education. Because when I looked at the word Brown versus the Board of Education, the word Brown spoke to me and told me it was black rights over white nonsense versus our Board of Education. Education. Thank you.
Talking about plugging out and plugging back in and stuff. And so the only way to get this is to get up and get it, right? And all you're gonna do is, you hear that downbeat? Give me the rhythm. Boom. Right. Right. So now, the whole thing is the connection between the drummer and the dancer, or the drum and the people. Now we got brother to break it down for us how a bunch of different ways. Psychochemically, I can't even come up with a word. But that was a word. That was pretty good. Psychochemically, I know, we're going to use that. So all you're going to do is catch that boom, 2, 3, step and wait, 2, 3, 4, boom, 2, 3, step and wait. When y'all gonna get it, I'm giving y'all what y'all better get it from back. It's not gonna ain't gonna know what to do every time I don't know. Bing, bing, bing. So you stepping on that boom, boom, boom. You got the bing, boom, boom, boom. Get that right foot on it or left, whatever foot you do, it don't know. It's just a matter of finding that. Boom, boom, boom. Wait for it. Boom. Now see in the car. In the car, going home, y'all gonna do this, or bing, hit play, and then be going boom to whatever is on. You gonna catch that. You know what your song is, and you know you catch that beat. It ain't just this. Where do you think that came from? Okay, I'm going now. Okay, now the thing is, when do we start? The start. You caught the signal I play every now and then. I play, I come back and I play the same little part. We call that the break. So you hear the break, that's when you start. First break is always for the music, to get the groove even going in the first place. So you take a minute, you find the beat. Then the next break, and all the rhythms have their own break, but the next break, then you start your dance. Just even how to hear our own music is different for us. Turn that noise out, right? It's our music. So we gotta know how to hear our own music. One more time, you see that? You didn't start playing till
Now, I forget about me after that.
So, I don't know how to do that stuff. I can't do that. I can't. It's ours. We do it anyway.
Yeah.
So now you gotta come, take class, learn, and retake what we try to give it to you. Can't give it away. Okay? So that's us. See that? That's us. It's the and the connection between the two. The signal, the break. You do your step. You got some more. You stop. If you really was going for it, that's my job. I follow you. I follow you. I follow you. You stop. I play your break. You stop. It's the connection between the two. The drum and the dance. You can't have one without the other one. So, you know, little etiquette, who to follow when you turn to go, all that kind of stuff. We work that out in class. But it ain't rocket science. It's what we do. All right, thank you.
Okay, we are a little bit behind schedule, so we're going to be iffy about the afternoon break, 3:45, if people want it or not. Okay, so we'll play that by ear. But we're going to give the floor back over to Brother Kaba.
But you know what's interesting? You recognize the energy that's in the room this time around compared to the last time we did this?
Yes.
Do you feel the way in which I call this out to consider what we have lost? You see, we're getting to the 6th dimension now. Because I saw many more people up on the floor. And I saw many more people getting into it in a way that they were freeing themselves without concern about how I was looking. That's not important now. It's the energy. Everyone relates in their own individual way to the drum and the drum to them. Like we all have our own heartbeat. And when we're doing this, the heartbeat is real, and it's important to understand really what happened in this room just now, because I was checking it out. I could feel it. And after it all wrapped up and we all took back our seats, I felt a release of energy that was not in the room the first time we did this. And that's what happens when we start being who we are as people. And it's very important, because just as we speak of brother with the farm, we speak of brother with the drum. We're getting back in sync with our vibration, back with our drum. Take these classes. You have it right here. But see, when we have these experiences, we all go our own separate ways afterwards. Oh, that was a heavy lecture. But what happens after that? Sign up for the brothers' classes. That's what happens after.
Thank you.
And to continue dancing, so that when I come back to Sacramento, having been in this class, you know, y'all gonna be standing up waiting for the brother to come in and start playing. In fact, some of y'all probably be dancing and the drummer not even gonna be here yet. Because of the nature of what happens to us as a people. But you can feel it. Okay, because what I'm saying are words, but I'm asking you, do you feel it?
I feel it.
And that's important to understand, that this is what we need to take back to our communities, back to our children, back to the energy that we need to bring back to us. This is part of what we allowed them to disassociate ourselves from. Because I was feeling it. And Brother Acronym. Hey. What can I say, brother?
How does he do that, right?
Hey, there's no words. You know, there's no words, because, you know, I saw a direct relationship between what he was doing with words and what the drummers were doing with the drum.
That's it.
The same exact thing. And this is why many times the Jele,
That's it.
the community historian, always talked to the drum.
That's it.
And so when he was laying out the legacy, the history, the information, the drummers were doing their thing while he was doing it, because the voice, the heart, all is part. This is the Africa. We can do all the reading of the books we want to, and all of it has its place. I'm talking about being African.
That's right.
Because I know that there are a lot of people outside of our culture who know our history sometimes better than us.
Of course.
But they don't have that root. They got the key, it's in the door, they open the door, but they can't walk in. But see, I don't need them to. Just open the door, I get it myself. James Brown, that's James Brown. That's James, no, I don't want no one to give me nothing, just open this door, I get it myself. And as it relates to some of us, not here now, I'm speaking of us in general, because I don't like to point fingers, but there's another James Brown song I like to quote. You know, where he said, you know, it's like a dull knife. Just ain't cutting. Talking loud. That's James Brown. You talking about acronyms. But brother, I salute you, brother. Thank you, brother. Man, I appreciate it. I won't be like you when I So I'm feeling, I'm really feeling Sacramento, and I'm just so thankful that I have something to go back to New York and tell our people that something's happening in Sacramento. Brother took me on a tour of this facility. Something's happening in Sacramento. In Fresno, you have a Sister Makeda who has a place called the World Beat. Well, I call it temple. I told her, you can't call this a center. This is a temple. The drawings on the walls, very much like as you walk through the hallways in the corridor. This is a temple here. This is not a center. For some people, they can walk in. It can be a house. It can be a building. It can be. But when you walk in and you know what you're looking at, it's a temple. When I saw them eyes of who on that door, that's a temple. That is not a center. That's not. In fact, those aren't even doors. I said, I'm walking through the eyes. Because I know what I'm looking at. When you know your history, when you know your culture, as our brother Listerville Middleton said in his poem on the origins of things, sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see and understand what you hear. We must transform ourselves, but information does play a very important part in this transformation. There's no question. And it is important that everywhere I go, as I said, one of the homework assignments was for us to study and know the countries of Africa. By December 31st, 2013, I charge us with knowing the countries of Africa, that we can name them. My advice is to study them by region. The second thing is we must embrace, as I spoke to you about Meduneta and about this symbolic language, a picture speaks 1,000 words, a symbol speaks 1,000 pictures. When you are reading Meduneta, it is far, far beyond what we have ever thought we're actually looking at. Meduneta is the foundations of an entire new way of thinking. It's a whole new stargate into another world of thinking. The world we're living in is the same world that our ancient Kemetic ancestors lived in, but the way in which they viewed the world was very different from the way we view the world. The things that we are looking at, we see them from a three-dimensional perspective. When our ancestors looked at things, they saw them from a six-dimensional. Same thing you're looking at, but it's six-dimensional. Okay? I think it goes back to an exercise, something that I saw you all doing earlier, when he was looking at it. And, I'll just go real quick through it. From what I think I saw, he had a camera up on a piece of paper, like that. And on the paper it was white, and it was a black box. Am I right? But when you view it from that camera, it was a picture of a woman with flowers, something like that? Say again?
It was a painting that I did.
A painting that you did. But what you were holding up was a piece of white.
Okay.
Is there something personal that you don't want to?
No, absolutely it's not. Essentially, when you were done speaking.
So please stand and talk to us, so that we can understand.
I deal in graphic technology, so I'm sort of on new stuff. Okay. And so after the speaking, my cousin said, well, what did you get from this? And I said, I got to tell you, it was the symbolism. Now, I'm fairly familiar with a lot of this background. I've educated myself, my family, but there are certain things that jump out at me. Reason symbolism jumped out at me because of exactly what we're talking about. The new technology that I'm working on right now is called augmented reality. Now, you can look it up. Real new, brand new, brand new. They're only doing it in Europe. But really what you're doing is working with markers or symbol. And once you bring up your iPad or your iPhone or any smartphone, anything else can come out at you. Now, I'm an artist, I do visual painting, but I also do music, poetry, this kind of thing. Well, when I start working with augmented reality, being who we are, everything pops in my head. Now, I'm listening to the poet over here. I can see him right now in augmented reality with words. Every single word, every single acronym he used, I can bring up the word for that. When my brother starts talking about symbolism and going back to our symbolism, why can't that one symbol show us every single sense, the 6 areas, the universe, whatever it may mean? and how it identifies to a symbol. So yeah, this is what I came out of. And like I said, this is real new, but look it up, augmented reality. It's so new, but in a minute, we'll probably all have it in our hands. And hopefully it'll come from me.
And by the way, we do already have it.
Yes.
That's how it came into existence in the first place. It's already amongst us. Brother, let me ask you a question. I had a friend who was a musician. His name was Onaje Gums. I used to ask him, did he dream music? You see, the world that you're situated in is how your nightlife, if I may call it that, how your melatonin is expressed within you. You dream words?
No. Yes, I do, but I think it's about my upbringing because my parents, I had a very strict father. He's made me pack my room up and put everything in the garage and leave a Bible and dictionary in my room. That's all you can do. So basically, I was into the word from the Bible and the dictionary. But when you say, do I dream? I know it's coming from somewhere else. I know, like I can wake up in the middle of the night and I look, oh, I got an acronym. You know, I'm like one of the, like a woman like having a brand new pair of shoes. She want to be the first one. That's how I am with word. I got this word. That's how I do it. So yeah.
See, the reason why I say this is because we all are and this is what our ancestors were telling us, not just in Kemet, but the Dogon tell us the same thing. The Luba of Central Africa tell us the same thing. You can go down to Southern Africa and our ancestors are telling us the same exact thing. There's a cultural unity, as Dr. Diop teaches us. There's a cultural unity in Africa. It presents itself differently because of its geographic location. If you're in a place that is a desert, then your reality is going to be sand. If you're in a place that's a very thick forest, your reality is going to be a forest. If you're in a place that's a savanna, it's going to come to you as a grassland. If you're around certain animals, it's going to come to you as animals. And that's the reality of the world that we live in. The Creator, the Ancestor, our existence speaks to us from our geographic location. However, the theme that it presents itself is the same. It's like the same script, different actors. You see? And we have been dumbed down. Really, we've been dumbed down. We have been stunted. Because we're afraid that people, you know, like when I'm in a mixed group of people culturally, I never say, did you hear that? Because I know that I hear things they don't hear. Because I know that the melanin deposited in my inner ear is working at a rate that is so far